Hello my friends and welcome. So the convoy which Russia sent yesterday to Pokrovsk didn't make it mainly. Yeah, some of the infantry landed still in Pokrovsk town, but the main part of the convoy was just annihilated. Well, simply because weather improved rapidly, Russians were not on time, they were not able to hide somewhere, they continued the movement, and Ukrainian drones of course found the targets. This video was shared today, the remains of the Russian convoy, some of the Buhanka vans and civilian vehicles which Russia continued to use. And we have more detailed videos, so this is the Russian motorcycle, it is on fire. One more motorcycle, guys, here on YouTube I may just show you some of the screenshots with kind of the blur images. Unfortunately, that's the limitation of the platform, but I'll share the original videos on my Telegram channel. Actually, I already shared it a few hours ago. You may check it out. The link for my Telegram is in the video description just below. This video was reposted by Spilnota Sternenka, Ukrainian volunteer Sternenka, and our guys from the 68 Brigade, I guess, did this. That means that those guys probably went one way, but some of them are still in those buildings. Those who survived, those who made it at first, yes, they were lucky. And still Russia may continue its infiltration attempts because they have many of those vehicles and many of the soldiers. So what happened yesterday morning is absolutely great. Ukraine found a particular Russian convoy and ambushed it. But in general, in total perspective, there is a big threat that Russia would send pretty much lots of the forces to Pokrovsk. We are now speaking about hundreds and hundreds of the troops which Russian army deployed there. And I want to show you where this convoy initially was spotted. It happened over here, this crossroad. Later on, the Russians took more territories, putting their flags out there, but later on they were kaputted. Still, Russian presence is all across Pokrovsk. They occupied roughly 90% of the settlement, but they still failed to deploy main forces, as we see. So their infantry is present elsewhere in this place, as well as Ukrainian infantry forces. Well, this video was shared today by the Russian channels. They show the Ukrainian GUR operation. Those are the special forces of Ukraine, and they storm one of the buildings or remains of the buildings in Pokrovsk. The group of Ukrainian soldiers tried to hide from the Russian drone. Unfortunately, one of the drones cancelled one of the soldiers and probably wounded the other one because they were close together on that video. Well, Russians wrote that those are GUR forces. Well, for me it's hard to confirm. Those patches of GUR are not visible out there, but guys were definitely equipped pretty much well. And after watching video once again, I see that the Russian drone operator after all missed the Ukrainian soldier. However, drone hit something very close, so there could be some of the shrapnel. Well, we don't know the outcome, but it wasn't that direct hit, so I will share it again on my Telegram channel and you'll judge what happened there. Well, maybe Ukrainian soldiers were wounded because the strike happened very, very close to our guys. Okay, that's the video filmed by Russians. They went to the local building or some of the garage in Pokrovsk. I cannot show you this video again, but I'll try to share it also on Telegram. Well, they've been hit quite hard by several of the drones. And one of the Russian soldiers, he was screaming a lot and he required some of the tourniquet to be applied on his legs. And I wonder if it is possible to evacuate those wounded Russian soldiers from Pokrovsk, because if the weather is good for Russians, it's hard to move around this settlement. Mainly they're just stuck in the basements in those buildings and just wait for reinforcements that are coming during the morning time. Because of the bad weather, it's impossible to track those Russian soldiers during fog. There are some magical morning fog hours, and Ukraine is also using this time for rotations, for supplies deliveries, and Ukraine recently even deployed one of the tanks to Rodinsk to operate against Russian positions without any risk of being hit by the Russian drones. And one more video from Mirnograd. You see, Russians are using aviation gliding bombs. This one is huge. I think it's FAB 5000. It may eliminate several of the buildings or a district of a town. very, very powerful explosions happening in Mirnograd. So Ukraine absolutely should leave the area. And why Ukrainian command waited so long for our guys to be evacuated through this small bottleneck, I don't understand it. Well, in general, we see that Russia still has an advantage. For the last 24 hours, Russians moved towards Mirnograd itself from Promin. They expanded the gray zone, occupying some of the streets again yesterday, today, and Promin is basically, well, half taken, let's say, with the main forces. And there Russians report about some of the Ukrainian troops surrendering to them. Well, later on they showed the videos with the Ukrainian prisoners of war. Some of them were wounded, but maybe it happened, maybe not. So far it's hard to tell, especially knowing Russian media official propaganda, because this was shared by Russian official channels. I need more confirmation about what exactly happened there, at least from the Russian military bloggers. Because for now they share the video filmed by the Russian Defense Ministry. I would say that it could be played, knowing the Defense Ministry. Yeah, so-called Defense Ministry, so they could film absolutely everything, everywhere, and present it as Ukrainian forces surrendering to them. So I would like to see more confirmation, because it's hard to prove where exactly it happened. But yeah, with this attack, Russia still continued to push Ukrainian army, and with this one as well, there is the risk for Ukrainians in Suhy Yar direction, and also, of course, for Mirnograd itself. According to Ukrainian forces based in Mirnograd, they say that Russia poured around 300 troops into Pokrovsk, so totally there could be 300, 400 forces there. Well, it's hard to tell how many troops are out there in Mirnograd and in all of this pocket for Ukrainian side, but I just hope that they will leave their position safely, because this bottleneck, well, for the last 24 hours it didn't get smaller here, but still it's very complicated to leave the area for Ukrainians. So it's not like 100% bad news coming from Pokrovsk, Mirnograd with this Russian convoy that was ambushed, kind of the positive news, but the fact that Russia has reinforcements to send here, well, I would still be very concerned about this one. We'll see how the situation evolves in the coming days here. And Russians, with their maps, they show the similar situation. By the way, they canceled this attack vector over here because Ukraine is now counterattacking in this area, pushing Russians towards the Krasny Liman, but Russians created significant bridgehead, I would say, and they're pressing Ukrainian army towards Pokrovsk and towards Mirnograd. And here they say that Ukrainian forces surrendered. Well, it's hard to tell. The information is coming just from official Ministry of the Russian Defense or something like that. But definitely this attack happened. An idea for Russia is to cut Ukrainian group in the southern area. Yeah, some of the Russian maps, they show like full encirclement of Mirnograd. And today I got some of the recommendations on YouTube, some of the pro-Russian English speakers, I don't know from what countries they are, they were speaking about full encirclement of the Ukrainian army in Mirnograd, and they show like this map, yeah, which is unreal. Even this Russian analysis shows that it's not the full encirclement of Ukrainian army. So what they want to present to us is complete bullshit. Even this is not a bullshit. Well, maybe this part, as I told you, but this looks like on deep state military map in general. Also, we have the big update coming in Konstantinivka. For the last 24 hours, Russia moved quite substantially. Let's go to the timeline. It was yesterday and it is today. Russia fully occupied Alexandra Kalinova and Katerinivka. Well, almost fully, yeah. There is this update of the situation. Well, actually I expected Ukraine to move across this lake even a few months ago. The fact that Russia advances so slowly from Toretsk, well, it means that the Ukrainian defense is really strong here. Well, because it was reinforced for years and years, even by the previous Ukrainian government. There are lots of the trenches here in front of the Konstantinivka, because it's, as you may say, it's very close to the previous frontline border with self-proclaimed DPR. And in general, those settlements, they are very prompt to Russian aggression. This line is very good for defense, and if Russia wants to occupy all of this territory, they'll have to waste thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of the troops. But it seems like Russian government doesn't really care. Lavrov, after the long break, went on air, Russian TV, where he stated that Russia will continue to demand denazification, demilitarization, and the goals of the special military operation to be reached. He compared the Ukrainian regime to Nazis, and they should be denazified as it happened to Nazi Germany in Nuremberg process. So they demand something like that for Ukraine. Then, in fact, this process should be started against Russia for its aggression in Ukraine. So everything is upside down out there for Russia, and what Lavrov says is absolute nonsense. But they follow this nonsense. Putin thinks like that. That's why they will continue this war, even though it has nothing to do with reality. Putin just figured out something in his sick mind, and he believes in that bullshit. And he also wants United States officials to believe, and sometimes Russia is even successful in brainwashing the White House administration, including Donald Trump. Well, maybe that's why Trump pushes to weaken Ukraine's resolution on Russian occupation at United Nations, sources tell to Kyiv Post. The United States insists that resolution to be presented in a broader format titled War in Ukraine without mentions of territorial integrity or aggression from the Russian Federation. Well, on the other hand, we have the actual sanctions implemented by White House, and they're really significant. They really push Russian oil industry quite hard. Plus, from what we know, United States freezed all of the talks with Russia about the situation in Ukraine or bilateral agreements, negotiations about making business as usual. For now, everything of that is on pause. Donald Trump really wants Russia to agree on ceasefire. Zelensky, by the way, agreed on that fully. By the way, about Zelensky, yeah, this is not Zelensky, this is his close friend Timur Mindich, who left Ukraine recently, and there is the huge scandal. I already mentioned it in one of my recent videos. Well, today I want to say that, I read the report from the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. It was just partially, a tiny little tip of the iceberg uncovered, and it's already very terrible for general reputation of the Ukrainian government. Guys, this is the huge, really big scandal, and there are high officials involved. Well, there are no direct accusations for Zelensky now, but multiple people from his circle are involved in energy corruption schemes. Energy sector, nuclear energy, everything of that was deeply into the corruption, and probably gonna record a big video with more details about that one, but definitely it's not a good sign. It ruins this internal relation between citizens and the government and the relation between Ukraine and Western partners. Well, the good thing that independent anti-corruption institutions are working in Ukraine, and they don't care if those Zelensky's friends or not, that those cases are being uncovered. It's good, but of course those put the shadow on the Ukrainian government, quite a huge shadow, and we'll see where it might lead. For now, Timur Mindich, who was the close partner of Zelensky for many, many years, he left Ukraine simply because he was followed by NABU, and there were searches in his apartments and other households. Yeah, he just afraid to be persecuted. He left Ukraine. He was spotted, by the way, in Austria, where he might go next. Probably to Tel Aviv. Well, at least I guess so. But we know that even FBI is involved in this corruption investigation. Well, if FBI is also looking into this case, it means that there could be some of the American funds involved. I don't see the other reason, because mainly Americans, they don't care if someone does something with their own country budget. So potentially it could be even the international scandal. Well, we'll see, guys. First of all, for me personally, Ukraine is not about Zelensky. It's not about Ukrainian government. It's about Ukrainian people, Ukrainian soldiers who continue to defend Ukraine, and people who chose not to be in Russia, not to live in corrupt country. I understand that it might take time for Ukraine to get rid of corruption, and unfortunately it is still out there at the very top level included. Well, hopefully one day Ukraine will just get rid of those bastards who cause actually life losses for Ukraine. Ukrainian soldier now has to fight not only against the Russian aggression, but also against internal enemy who takes funds from Ukrainian army. And yeah, I promise to film a big video, maybe tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, I will see, dedicated to this specific topic to explain you absolutely everything. This information is already open. NABU is looking to this case, and not just Mindich is involved there. There are lots of the high officials of the big companies and officials of Ukrainian government. By the way, the photo of Nabu, well, it showed some of those cities like Atlanta, Kansas City, so money delivered straight from the United States of America, fresh, yeah? Atlanta, once again, serious numbers, everything. What is this? Minnesota, maybe? Yeah, all of the United States dollars are made in the United States of America, but fresh package, And it is not just about this particular package of money. They're speaking about millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions. Could be billions, we'll see where it leads. And now let's go back to the front line. There, Russians captured 3 of the settlements for the last 24 hours. Russians made the breakthrough Ukrainian defense. Unfortunately, the defense is not the main one, it's the local. But Russian army moves in Zaporizhia and also in Dnipropetrovsk region very fast. Let's go to the timeline. Yesterday, and it is today, the Ukrainian General Commander Syrskyi already reported that Russia occupied 3 of the villages before. It was a fake report about Ukrainian fights in Rivnopilya and Solotke, that the Ukrainian warriors were successful. This information was shared by this delusional TikToker commander Valentin Manko. I already told about him in one of my videos. Somehow he was not dismissed. Somehow he is still in charge of the big Ukrainian army group, also in that region. It is evident that this guy is not competent at all, but still Syrskyi keeps him. Somehow, I don't know for what reason, for people to be angry, for our volunteers to scream out loud, what are you freaking doing? But yeah, Manko is still a colonel commander. Oh my god, colonel. So he spread this disinformation that on 9th of November, Ukrainian army was successful, Russians were stopped, and everything is good in that Zaporizhia direction. It was a huge success, blah blah blah, and even I reported about the possible success of Ukrainian army, and I was kind of surprised. Okay, Russians were not spotted before in those areas, but in fact the fight for those 2 settlements was ongoing for quite a while, and now it is evident that Russia actually was successful in gaining the ground and 3 of the settlements. Is it some sort of the strategy to present this fake information for our enemy? No, because simply enemy knows its own positions and its own success. At least the local Russian commanders, they know about it, and I'm sure they report about everything happening to Gerasimov. So the fight is ongoing still for Solotki, Rivnopilya and Yakubova, and Russians occupied Uspenivka, Novomykolaivka. We see it, yeah, yesterday and today. Quite big advancement, and the only thing, the only line, defense line, which may stop potential Russians, well, it goes from Pokrovsk, and all of those settlements, they form this defense line, and also, as you may see, there is the natural obstacle, the river, which is after all not that wide, and our volunteers, including volunteer Sternenka, say that potential Russians may move by 10 kilometers a day if the situation like that continues in Zaporizhia direction, so there is the threat for many of the settlements, including Hulai Pole, because potentially Russia may create some sort of the pocket here. If they advance to Rivnopilya, if they advance further to this river, yeah, they might create this some sort of the pocket, and the situation could be similar to Mirnograd. And this fight is ongoing, I would say, very close to Zaporizhia, the big city of Ukraine, which is located at the Dnieper River, or Dnipro if you speak Ukrainian. So Russians potentially may cross it and create their bridgehead. So this situation is very, very bad. what is happening in the southern part of Ukraine. I understand why Russia is not willing to stop this war, because with those kind of the territorial gains here, maybe it's profitable for Russia to continue while they have some of the resources. Well, in the long term, of course, it's not profitable for Russia because their economy continue the stagflation. And after all, with some years, they're going to struggle a lot, but Putin believes that he can win this war. And if we check out the timeline, for example, 1 week ago, this is 1 week ago, and today, kind of the substantial movement here, yeah? And let's go to October. What's the date today? 10th? Well, 11th, maybe 10th. And today, yeah, you see 1 month and also kind of the big movement. And it's the fastest Russian attack from all of the front lines, because here defense of Ukrainian army is kind of weak compared to Donbass. All right, I don't laugh about the Russian army any longer, but I laugh about their technology. So this robot, Idol, literally, that's the name of the robot, was presented today. I cannot play the music on the background, copyrights after all, but something happened to the robot and oh my god, Russia, what have you done? Oh, yeah, the black screen. Idol, you fucked up. What happened to you? He even changed his mimics like, oh, it's inevitable. I'm falling down. Boom. This guy was like, oh, with the supersonic speed, tried to recover the idol. Oh my god. Why have been created that clumsy from the chips out of the washing machines? And so many cameras out there, presentation of the robot which fell down, and this is shame. Idol, this is shame. All right, Bloomberg reports that most Indian oil refineries keep buying Russian crude oil for December. Well, still you see that they keep purchasing the oil for the next few months, yeah? December, January, February, like for example, Chinese big companies, energy companies as well. But speaking about long-term scenarios, there could be some circumnavigation of those sanctions. I'm sure about it, my friends. So the sanctions should be reviewed and reinforced. That's what European Union usually does with every of the package. If it wasn't the will of Hungarian leader Orban or Fico, who is the Slovakian prime minister, those are basically Russian authors. So they drag down all of the possible strong sanctions applied on Russia. Without this influence, Russia would face more sanctions, of course. So I hope that Doni knows that and they will reinforce the sanctions even more after some period of time, but I'm not sure about it. I think that Doni may even think that sanctions do not act on Russia, since Russia continued the war and will continue. So maybe there is the variant for him even to drop those sanctions. We'll see. Oh, today is the third year anniversary of the Ukrainian counteroffensive operation towards Kherson, where Ukraine liberated the vast part of the Kherson Oblast. Russians had no chance but to leave this big city. And still it's the biggest settlement Russians managed to occupy since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Well, Mariupol is also big, but Kherson is a little bigger. By the way, Russians took it without any sort of the fight, as well as all of those territories from the north of Kherson and the southern regions of Ukraine, because Ukraine was not prepared for the war. Why? Well, it's better to ask Ukrainian government for that. And that is what I cannot personally forgive, as many of the Ukrainians, to the government. And even though Russia proclaimed Kherson as their own city and all of the people who live there Russians, but they now strike those civilians. They open the safari on those. There are numerous of the videos on Telegram and also on X showing how people are being hit by drone drops or FPV drones. Civilians, literally. That is how Russia trained their soldiers. So Ukrainian enemy, Russia, is a barbarian army, and they act in the most disgusting way possible. Oh, Russia is getting ready to cut the entire internet connection. Probably they're preparing some sort of the firewall, and they're also testing the cut, like total cut of internet for people. Roskomnadzor, that's the institution that limits some of the browsers, some of the websites and stuff in internet. It published this kind of the image showing that, okay, then you have Wi-Fi, your life is on pause, and when you don't have Wi-Fi, you have this bright spirit and you live. Switching off Wi-Fi doesn't mean the loss of connection. Sometimes it means you find the connection with yourself. Kind of the interesting rhetorics, and also in Russian Duma, so the Russian parliament, they say that internet is mostly a Western negative component of the Russian society. By the way, in Ulyanovsk region, Russia completely cut the mobile internet. They say till the end of the special military operation. Well, if they say like that, it means that Russia is preparing something really big, maybe a new mobilization, and Russia wants to avoid the information to spread in internet, for some of the online groups to be created for people to coordinate the efforts. And already they block some of the calls using WhatsApp and Telegram and some other messengers. Every day Russian society is getting more and more restricted. And guys, I want to apologize, I am quite pessimistic for the last few days. Well, basically because I'm a realist, I see the picture on the front lines, I see the picture with the Ukrainian support and everything of that. By the way, support, good news, it increased, but still it is not what is needed for Ukraine to stop Russian army completely. So many issues actually. I try to be positive, but at the same time I tell what I think, and my thoughts are based on facts, and my duty is to present to you the truthful information, okay? And thank you for watching my videos despite the news, and hopefully tomorrow we're gonna have something outstanding, yeah, really positive. We'll see, guys. I hope for this kind of the scenario, and also thank you for your kind support on Patreon, on membership. Because of your support, this my job is possible on this platform on YouTube. Thank you so much for it. If you want to support the channel, the link for Patreon is in the video description, and for membership just press the join button somewhere here. Obviously, if you have this opportunity and if you are willing to support my job, if no, just press the like to this video and subscribe for the channel, because that is how you boost this video in YouTube algorithms. Thank you so much for that as well. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.